And we're live. Hello, hello. For a stream that I really have no idea what I'm doing. I'm talking. Don't know how to do that. Okay, let's maybe bring that down a bit. I feel that's maybe a little too loud. Yeah, looks about right. Always adjust it later. But, yep, I am here just to talk today. And, well, talk about something very specific. Well, of course, very specific's maybe niche, I suppose, is maybe a better word. But I am here to talk about Tokusatsu. Tokusatsu. One of it. How I pronounce it I'll try and pronounce it consistently. But well, it's something actually not the first time I've dabbled into Tokusatsu related content on my channel. But first time in about 8 years, maybe 7, something like that. Because on YouTube, I happen to have something like 3,000 subscribers. And there's a reason for that, which is I'll maybe get into it later once I kind of get to that point. Because the only thing I have really planned today is I kind of talk a little about Tokusatsu and about how I discovered it, like what it is, why I like it. It's hard to say why I like it, but I'm getting completely... I have no attention span for this kind of thing. But anyway, I think I should start just briefly with a little definition of Tokusatsu. And, you know, in typical fashion, I will use the definition I stole from Wikipedia. Which is, well, Tokusatsu is a Japanese term for live-action films or television programs that make heavy use of practical special effects. And that's it. That's what Tokusatsu is. Television programs that make heavy use of practical special effects. And by practical, it means things like kind of, if there's going to be an explosion, you use actual explosives. Don't CGI that. If you need a monster, you put a person in a bamboo and rubber suit. And that's your monster. Yeah. So yeah, other than that, Tokusatsu mainly falls under kind of sci-fi, war, fantasy, or horror genres. It's technically not a genre in and of itself. It's more a method of describing the filming techniques used. But given how you can't almost refer to it as its own genre at this stage, given how you mentioned Tokusatsu and quite people who know about it know what the kind of shows you're talking about. I suppose the obvious cases being Tokusatsu heroes like Super Sentai, Kamen Rider, and kaiju films. So going back to the very original Tokusatsu, Godzilla or Gojira to use its original title. So yeah, a little more about the history. The original techniques apparently came from the mind of a man called Shozo Magino. But the man more commonly attributed with creating Tokusatsu is a man by the name of Eiji Tsuburaya. A name that... Now, Tsuburaya might sound familiar to anyone who's, dabbled in Tokusatsu before, or possibly even if you haven't. Because Eiji Tsuburaya is, I believe, also the man who founded Tsuburaya Productions, which is, even today, still responsible for making all the Ultraman content. He was originally coming up with Tokusatsu stuff. The inspiration was, I think they were making Japan wanted a King Kong movie, their own version. So, and in 1954, he was working on Gojira. And I think I don't know quite how the conversation went or what exactly went down, but he decided, what if instead of using, miniatures and stop motion and stuff, what if we built a small city and put a guy in a 200-pound rubber and bamboo dinosaur suit? Thus, Tokusatsu was born. And yeah, that's what Tokusatsu is in like very simple terms. I thought the only other thing to say about Tokusatsu itself is it is made up of the word itself is made up of 2 kanji, which literally translate just as special photography, which, oh, that's self-explanatory. It's a method of filming that uses special effects techniques. But I am not maybe the best person to like talk about things in like go into deep dives and objective, like talking about history and stuff. I get far too distracted and stuff. Shouldn't really be talking in the first place. But I just want to rant a bit, because it's been on my mind for a while to just, you know, vent about probably what is the biggest passion in my life right now, which is Tokusatsu. And how I got into it. So, if you can see on the Twitch tags, I have tagged myself as a Northern Irish streamer, so I live in Northern Ireland. I think I'm British. I consider myself British. I don't know if... I'm unsure entirely of what heritage I am. But definitely from among the British Isles. So, you know, quite far from Japan. Not really, you know, a big international country. Northern Ireland's, we kind of... small, forgotten about. I often have to explain to people when I'm abroad kind of where exactly Northern Ireland is, what it is. But yeah, as a kid growing up, I was, you know, as kids do, I watched TV. I was never really too much into cartoons and the like. I think there are a couple I watched. Code Lyoko was the big one. Great show. And then, whatever, I saw like some like older cartoons, because I was influenced a lot by like the TV shows my mom introduced me to, so it was a lot of shows from the 80s and 90s, like early 90s, that weren't really, you know, the shows made around the time I was growing up. I remember watching like old episodes of Danger Mouse and, you know, well, I wasn't big into cartoons. Something I was big into was puppet shows. And when I say puppet shows, I'm talking about the likes of Stingray, Captain Scarlet, and of course the big one that's in the thumbnail is Thunderbirds. I was a massive Thunderbirds fan. Kind of still am, to be fair. I've still got the DVDs sitting, just waiting for a DVD player to be plugged in so I can watch the whole thing again. And that is going to be a binge that will make a complete mess of my schedule. But I don't know, there was just... I don't know if I understood it at a young age, but there's something that's always kind of appealed to me about stuff being real in TV. Because even though, like, it's Thunderbirds, like, it's so obviously fake, like, you can see the puppets, you can see the strings sometimes. It's all very clearly, like, little toy models in a little toy set. But something about it being real physical objects rather than computer generation just, I don't know, makes it much better. That's why not too long ago I tried to watch the new the Thunderbirds Are Go cartoon, the animation, and I was actually pleasantly surprised when I saw that the vehicle scenes at least use real sets and real models again. Like all the characters are animated, but they didn't entirely leave behind the puppet side of things, and I was very hesitant getting into it because I'd seen a lot of like kind of new remakes of older claymation shows or stop motion made into modern cartoons. So I was a bit hesitant, but I kind of thought, you know what, it's there, I've got an opportunity to watch it, I'll give it a go. But yeah, like, I don't know what it is about it. I can't say why. It just makes it feel so much better to me to see shows like that. But all that sets up is I like shows that have that sense of realness. Not realism, but realness, if that makes sense. Oh yeah. Yeah, I suppose in the original run you couldn't see the strings. But to be fair, I very much don't think I was watching the original run. The original run was back in... Like, the original one was like... It was even before the 70s, wasn't it? Like, Thunderbirds is quite an old show. But no, I was watching it in kind of the very late 90s, early 2000s. Uh, I need to can't actually remember too much because I think it was mostly. No, I might not. Maybe I wasn't able to see the strings. To be fair, I was a kid at the time, so I wasn't even paying attention to whether I could see strings or not. But we were still watching on good old VHS tapes. So, at least the ones I hadn't broken. I apparently had a tendency as a child to always pull out the tape in my, VHSs. But anyway, so yeah, I had a penchant for shows like that. And that is when I stumbled across a little show on TV that was broadcasting that, some people might be familiar with, called Power Rangers. Now, I think I first kind of started watching while Time Force was airing, but I kind of only caught the tail end of it, because the first series I remember properly getting into, and it got me absolutely hooked on the series, was Wild Force. I was mad about Power Rangers. So, like, that was what I was saying. Like, when people ask me, like, what do you want to be when you grow up? I'm like, I want to be a Power Ranger. I mean, I can't deny, like, part of me still doesn't want that. Like, Toei or Saban, if you ever need someone who's got no skill but has passion, I mean, anything, I'll work for free if you put me in Power Rangers. But yeah, Wild Force was the start, and it was definitely a start, because it did not end there. I carried on watching through what came after Ninja Storm and Dino Thunder. Then when it came to SPD, I think at that stage I'd kind of gotten to the age where, you weren't really supposed to be watching Power Rangers anymore. I was, what, 9? And it's kind of like, no, you can't watch all of those, like, baby shows. You need to... But I didn't. I don't know. I just kept at it. Well, kind of, no. I tried to keep at it, is what I should say. But, peer pressure is a thing, and a thing that works. So eventually I kind of dropped it a bit. I stopped watching it. I stopped buying the toys. Or, well, asking to have the toys bought for me. I didn't have an income at that age. And I kind of, like, kept an eye on it, kind of like seeing, like here, getting the names of what the new seasons coming out were, and still being aware it existed. And then moved on to secondary school, and kind of started just getting left behind. I had other interests, and because I wasn't watching Power Rangers, I had to find other stuff to watch. And that did lead eventually to me. Well, it didn't actually lead to me watching anime. Starting to watch anime came from somewhere completely different. That was a cousin of mine let me borrow one of his Bleach DVDs. Bleach was my introduction to anime. I'm trying to remember back then, like, how anime watching worked, because we didn't have Crunchyroll. I think it was just DVDs mostly. Or maybe it was on... I can't remember. Anyway, point is, Bleach, my first anime. Started watching that and got into it. And then through school, I got into the big ones I remember being into in school were a good one to start with. Yeah, Bleach. Yeah, Bleach was good. It did teach me the valuable lesson that I cannot stomach shows that are 300 episodes long. I watched through it and I enjoyed it until, like, the end of, I think it was season 12 or 13. At the end of that, kind of, it was the big climax that it'd been building to since season 1. And then they made another season after that, and I was kind of like, no, I'm happy for the story to just end here. But then the anime I went on to watch were... I remember very much Attack on Titan Season 1 when it came out. And I still haven't watched any more of Attack on Titan because I was so hyped for Season 2 after the cliffhanger at the end of Season 1, but it felt like it took so long. By the time Season 2 eventually came out, I was just kind of like, I'm done. I've lost the interest you had built up for me. And the other one, definitely in school, was Sword Art Online Season 1, when that first came out. Cool. And that's one Metamon I happen to know you have, you know, a passing interest in. Point is, I was kind of getting into anime there, Japanese media. And it was around this time that... Oh, I can't remember what it was. I remember you talking about it, having no idea. Oh. Yeah, Oh yeah, you're back. Good old staying up just the night before an exam to binge watch an entire anime. You still passed, at least. But, yeah. It was when we got our first, like, TV streaming service. I can't remember if it was Netflix or Love Film or... what. I can't remember what it was. Amazon Prime Video, maybe? I don't know. It was when, kind of, like, quite early on when, like, that was only picking up steam, you know, way before what it's like now. And I just, while I was browsing it, I happened to notice, oh, they have all the Power Rangers here. You know what? For nostalgia's sake, I'm gonna give it a watch. So, I went and gave it a watch. And I decided to start. I'd kind of, like, fallen off. Like, I'd kind of watched the first couple of episodes of SPD when it came out, but then I'd kind of fallen off, and I kind of like, you know what? Let's go back. Let's watch the series that I missed. Let's see if I can't get back into this. And I did. I liked it. It's still silly. It's still childish, but it's still just so fun. Such a fun. Power Rangers is just fun. And, you know, me being, what, 14 at the time, you know, I was mature. I was like, you know what, I'm mature, I'm gonna stay and watch the end credits and actually read them. And this decision, the single decision to stay and watch the end credits of Power Rangers, as I will go on to explain during this stream, is a decision that has dramatically changed the course of my life. I say dramatically, but to be fair, comparative to the rest of my life, it was fairly dramatic. And that little... The thing is, I found this frame. Now, it's hard to see, because I could not for the life of me find a high-quality version of the end credits for Power Rangers SPD. But this image, you can't read it, because I can hardly read it, but I know what it says, because I remember what it says. Based on Deca Rangers from Toei Company Limited. I can't read the other bit, but I know it attributes it to Saburo Hade, the producer of Super Sentai. And, you know, I was like, you know, I like Power Rangers. And, you know, I'm getting into anime. Japanese stuff is kind of neat. So I decided, let's look this up. Yeah, I looked Deca Ranger up, and I discovered Super Sentai. And that is a rabbit hole I have never escaped from. Because I found it, and I'm kind of like, this is cool. The openings are hype. I looked up a compilation of Super Sentai openings, because that's how I judge, like, any anime or TV show I'm going to watch, is if it has an opening, let me see the opening. If you have hype music and cool graphics, like, I'm probably interested. I am a simple man to please. And I was like, you know what? This Power Rangers SPD is kind of cool, but I'm interested in this one. I'll give this a go and see what it's like, see how it compares. So I watched Deca Ranger. And, whew. So, Deca Ranger. My first introduction to Super Sentai. There we go, there's some picture for us. This is... Oh, it was... I still love it. It's still one of my favorite seasons, and that's probably like primary bias. I think it is like you're always biased to your first time on something. Oh, but I don't know why. I think it's maybe just I get along well with like the Japanese sense of humor, and I know I definitely like the sound of the Japanese language now. I prefer so much to English, but I fell in love with it. Absolutely, it was amazing, and I finished Deca Ranger. I binged it far harder than I should have. I'm just kind of like, what now? And of course, the answer to what now was, well, I guess there's Magi Ranger next. And you know, it just keeps going. Because after Magi Ranger, you know what? There was another series of Super Sentai, Boukenger. I kind of went on and realized at the time I was watching, there were about 36 seasons. And I was all for it. I just kept going through it, and oh, Tokusatsu. It was amazing. But it wasn't, I think it was only like after I finished like Magi Ranger, I was kind of like, okay, maybe I've been watching like them in like since when I finished Power Ranger, but what's like the currently airing Super Sentai? Which introduced me to, oh dear, that's not working. Oh, that's changed immediately. That's not how that was supposed to happen. There we go. Resize the picture. That's better. Yeah, introduced me to Go Busters, which was at the time I was watching the currently airing series of Super Sentai. And that got me, like, that was awesome. And it was one of the time as well that, like, the first one I'd seen that, like, I hadn't heard, like, of a Power Rangers adaptation to it. And to be fair, it took us a while to get a Power Rangers adaptation of it in the form of Beast Morphers. But Go Busters is specifically important to me because when I watched it, it had the superhero time little commercial things included. And they were, well, superhero time commercials were just, you know, the little things that promoted the 1 hour programming block on TV Asahi that included Super Sentai for 1/2 hour and a certain show called Kamen Rider for the other 1/2 hour. So I saw there was little superhero time crossover things, and well, I'm like, okay, what's this? I kind of saw it for a wee while. I think at most for Go Busters it was the Forze I was seeing the crossovers for. And I saw them for a while. I think I got about halfway through the season before I was eventually like, okay, I'm curious, what is this? It looks neat. So, of course, I went back to my good old tried and tested method of, I'm going to look up Kamen Rider openings. Oh boy, again, another decision that I maybe shouldn't have made. Because that introduced me to another rabbit hole. Kamen Rider. Which is quite possibly, at this stage, and it's quite possibly staying that way, but my favorite show of all time. If I have the choice to watch something, I'm probably like, if I had a choice, like, to pick, like, one series or something, and that's, like, all I can watch for a year, I'm gonna pick a series of Kamen Rider. No questions asked. Picking which series I pick would be a struggle, but it's gonna be a series of Kamen Rider. This particular one is Den-O. Good old sword form, Momotaros. One of my favorite characters. Just, again, this is primary bias, like, no hiding it. But Den-O was my introduction to Kamen Rider. And, I don't know, I think it definitely got me in the way it got a lot of people, because even in Japan, as far as I know, Den-O is a very popular series. Of all the riders who have like kind of made comebacks and later like crossover films and such, Momotaros and the Den-O crew are one of the more like, consistent recurring characters. You get pulled in for it. And I understand why. Like, it's a series that does such a good balance between the serious side of things and having just, like, it's very much a comedy. But there's some really, really hard-hitting moments in it. Like, if you've watched it and you've gotten to Sakurai Yuto and Zero Form, yeah, Zero Form makes you cry. But oh, there are. You know what? I'm actually, because I have nothing better to do to pad out the time with, let's take a little break from me talking about myself to actually talk about Tokusatsu. So let's see if I can't... let me see if I can maybe make this work a bit neater. Okay, so what I'm going to do is... So, this is Deca Ranger. This is the first season of Super Sentai I watched. And Deca Ranger is, well, if you've watched Power Rangers SPD or know about it, you know it's kind of police-focused. In particular, in Deca Ranger, SPD is still a term used and it stands for Special Police Deca Ranger. And Deca being kind of, from what I'm aware, like slang for detective in Japanese. So, you know, they're quite simply just detective rangers. Their whole journey is, you know, defend Earth from criminals. In particular, there's one kind of like black marketeer who's, you know, trying to profiteer off a lot of the crime happening on Earth by selling weapons and tools to the bad guys. And it's, you know, it's quite an interesting one. There are some, to be fair, I enjoy it, but I can't really, I don't know what it is too much I like about it. I think it is that it does, there are some interesting issues it does grapple with, particularly because, unlike the Power Rangers SPD equivalent, in Power Rangers SPD, there are like finisher attacks and such stuff, if I remember correctly, like trap enemies in cards and they go to jail trapped in a card. In Deca Ranger, no, it's they call it deleting. It's kind of just straight up capital punishment. But, you know, by police officers in brightly colored spandex. But there are some moments where that is used quite... Oh. Like, okay, minor spoilers here, so maybe mute for the next 30 seconds if you don't want to hear spoilers for a 20-something-year-old... No, it's not 20-year-old. Or is it 20 years? It actually might be 20 years old. Deca Rangers. No, it can't be. Hold up a sec. What year did Deca Ranger come out? Time Ranger was 2000. So it's... After Time Ranger, it was Gower Ranger, Hurricane Ranger, Ava Ranger. Yeah, just some angry police and colorful spelling. That's... Okay, 2000. Nearly 20... Deca Ranger can't be nearly 20 years old. I remember the 10-year anniversary movie coming out, and it wasn't that long ago, right? Oh, that makes me a little sad. Oh. Yeah, what was I saying? No longer baby. Oh. But yeah, well, there's one episode in Deca Ranger where the whole plot is, the Blue Ranger has, you know, found a girlfriend, and, you know, well, it's not that he's found her in that episode, he's apparently known her for a while, and just kind of, you know, been keeping it on the down low, because Blue Ranger, in typical Blue Ranger fashion, is, you know, the cool member of the team. He doesn't quite, you know, let his personal life get involved too much with the rest of the team. But he's also going for a promotion, to be promoted to, what's the term, a Tokusatsu. He's like the special forces police. Getting a shiny gold badge and everything. So he's kind of, in return, given this assignment. It's kind of like, right, this is an assignment, this is your job, it's not for the team. And he takes it on. The twist comes up being that this serial murder case he's investigating, he finds out the criminal for it is actually his girlfriend's little brother, who is killing people to extract something from their blood, I think, to make a cure for his sister's disease. Because his sister is somewhat dying. And you have the Blue Ranger suddenly stuck in this kind of, this guy's a serial killer, I'm the officer assigned to his case, it is my job to bring him to justice. Which in this case is, I have been authorized to execute him. I have been authorized to execute my girlfriend's little brother. That's an episode. Oh. So what's next? Next up was good old Magi Ranger. Magi Ranger. Now, taking a step away from like Space Police and stuff, we have Maho Sentai Magi Ranger, Magic Task Force Magi Ranger, which is, you know, magic. It was an interesting one because it was a family-based one. All the 5 main Rangers are siblings. I believe Green Ranger's the eldest, then it's Blue. No. Oh, no, can I not remember what? I think in terms of age, it's green, pink, blue, yellow, red. Red's definitely the youngest and green's definitely the oldest. I think that's the right order. No. The Magi Ranger was all about courage. That was the motive for that one. Because their magic was kind of, each spell they unlocked was kind of given to them as a reward from the Heavenly Saints for displaying courage. And that was like the message behind each two was kind of like the different forms of courage and how it appears. It was just generally, I quite enjoyed it. It's also had a, so I've not seen you kind of, I let you see the Green Ranger a little bit. There we go. he is there. I'm just blocking him. Oh, so I need to turn the little thing on VC face off so you don't see the blue bar whenever I approach the limits of how far I'm allowed to move. Oh. But it's also one of the few Sentai that had kind of like a romance subplot, which was quite nice. I'm definitely an action fan, but I don't mind a romance subplot here and there. Cool. The following Magi Ranger, we have... Actually, let's go back, and there's another series that I've watched. Time Ranger. This is... Well, to be fair, I haven't gone back beyond Deca Ranger a lot, other than for Time Ranger, which is the oldest series of Super Sentai I've watched. Well, to be fair, I've tried to pick up like bits and pieces of older Sentai, like Changeman was one I've tried to watch. Time Ranger was all about time travelers. It's quite similar in a lot of ways to, I believe, Power Rangers Time Force. It feels like one of the ones where they didn't change as much as they have in some seasons. It's about 4 people coming from the future and, you know, 1 man from the present joining the team, and them fighting to, you know, recapture the criminals who have traveled back in time and are causing problem, and, you know, taking advantage of the fact that they have future technology to rob banks and buildings and, you know, commit crimes, because Earth Police isn't going to stop them. No. It was... the thing I remember about it is it had an interesting way of filming action scenes a lot of the time. By using kind of like by using like low frame rates to make the fights kind of... I don't know the word to describe it. like the fights felt quite choppy, but like in a deliberately aesthetic way, rather than kind of just because it was choppy, I think is the right word to describe it. But starting to go back forward in time, let's return to Bokenger. Bokenger, Go-Go Sentai. Go-Go just being onomatopoeia for rumbling. I think in this case specifically referring like to rumbling of engines or wheels over rock or something. And Bokenger, Boken coming from Japanese, for the Japanese word for adventure, and Jur just coming from ranger. That's something Super Sentai does a lot, is just... a lot of times it's something ranger. Other times it's just something Jur, which doesn't quite mean anything. Bokenger was all about these 5 adventurers whose job was to find ancient and powerful artifacts called Precious. Precious, yes. And keep them out of the hands of... negative, I believe they called them. Different groups that wanted to use the Precious for evil means, or... well, maybe not necessarily evil, but selfish means. So they worked for an organization called Sagas, SGS, to capture them, lock them away, and generally just, you know, prevent anyone from accidentally ending the world with ancient technology. Oh. After Bokenger, we had... there we go. This is a nice one. Geki Ranger! Juken Sentai, the Beast-Faced Task Force. Geki... I'm a little unsure about the translation of Geki. Because it feels... not... quite... I think it means like something along the lines of like intense. I generally, the more I think about it, I really can't remember what it means. But it was a animal-based Sentai, all using like the martial arts, the animal spirits within to fight. It was one that did have quite... it had very good villains, I very much remember. Ryo and Melee and Long. And the interactions between all of them were good. Also, transforming bad guys. The best bad guys. I mean, I love the transforming heroes, but bad guys can do the same thing. It's something about it's just awesome. Plus, Geki Ranger was one show that introduced me to character songs. Because they did at one part they had 7 episodes. Or was it 8 episodes? I think it might have been 8 episodes. Where they replaced the normal ending credits with kind of each character got to play their character song during the end credits instead. And oh, I love it. Character songs are great. That's Geki Ranger. Following that, we went back to Cars with Go Onger. Go Onger was... it was very much a more... I feel like a very much more comedy-focused one. Yeah, with all the talking cars and things that I still have to applaud Disney for somehow turning into kind of a... I really need to watch Power Rangers RPM, which is the adaptation of Go Onger. Because Disney managed to turn this comedy-focused series into what I've heard is quite possibly the best Power Rangers series there's been. And, you know, gave it a post-apocalyptic setting. Like, it's the last bastion of humanity on a world overtaken by maniacal AI. But Go Onger's plot was more simple. The bad guys just wanted to corrupt the Earth and kind of, like, terraform it more or less by polluting it. It had the message behind it, kind of, you know, of different ways to, you know, help the environment. It also had it started the trend of, I believe, the pile-on robot, where, you know, they have all 12 mechs combined together into one big mech that just slides across the ground because it can't actually walk. But another series that had that, and okay, I'm going to have to definitely talk about this one a wee bit. I cannot talk about Super Sentai without mentioning Shinkenger. Shinkenger is, I feel I have to say, in terms of the story, the best Super Sentai I've watched. I don't know. I've seen like kind of comparison clips to Power Rangers Samurai, but Shinkenger just, I think a samurai show from Japan just gets it better. Particularly because I feel like they treated it almost as if it was a period drama in some ways. Like, it took place in modern times, but the Red Ranger he's the lord of the other Rangers. They're his retainers. And they do still have the thing, like, you know, a couple of them are like, yeah, we understand it's kind of a hereditary position, but, you know, this is modern times. I don't really want to, you know, be beholden to a lord. And just all the characters in it are so well and interact so well. And there's some great foreshadowing in it for stuff that happens, like, very late in the story. And stuff that happens really early on. I don't know how much of it was, like, pre-planned, but, like, there are some things, like... Oh, there's, like... I remember, I think it's in, like, possibly episode 6, like, it's quite early on. And the Red Ranger gets told something, and there's... It's really something that I didn't realize until I watched through it. Because that's... It's one of the shows that I feel definitely rewarded me for doing a second watch through, because there's... the little hints dropped throughout that you don't know to look out for the first time. Because the first time you're going through, you're just trying to enjoy the show, and you don't know what the twists coming up are, you don't know what's being foreshadowed. Then you watch through it again, you kind of go, oh, that's... Oh! It's probably... I almost think I enjoy watching something a second time through than I do watching it the first time through, just for that feeling of understanding all the background things. So, after Shinkenger though, we had, oh, I'm gonna have to resize that. Wait, that's the wrong one. Excuse me. I need to keep resizing all these images because I didn't think to, you know, make sure they were all correctly aspected the first time around. Here we go. Goseiger. Goseiger was... from what I gather, it wasn't particularly popular among Western Tokusatsu fans. Like, it wasn't unpopular. But I think, you know, Shinkenger set quite a high bar. And the characters were... The characters definitely weren't as strong in Goseiger. In this one, the Rangers are Guardian Angels, or Gosei Angels, whose job is to defend humanity, especially after, you know, oh, what's it called? I can't remember even now name of it. But the land they came from is cut off, and they're trapped on Earth, and they can't get any reinforcements to help them, so they're stuck defending the Earth from alien invaders. And what really got me about Goseiger is that they defeat the alien invaders in, like, episode 16? 15? But, like, only, like, a third of the way through the series, if even. And it's wondering, they have multiple threats. Like, it's not just... Bokenger did a similar thing, where, like, there are multiple enemy groups. But in Bokenger, all the groups were there at the same time, and sometimes they interfered with each other. In Goseiger, it's a case of... They had sequential threats that kind of escalated the situation. Which I think is almost... Actually, when I think about it, it does kind of make a little more sense for... power... Or like the power creep in shows. Like why the bad guy doesn't just immediately send their lieutenant in episode 2 to crush these new, you know, the opposition. Because in this case, kind of like the first enemy, just even if he goes in full force, doesn't quite have that strength. But then there's this entirely new enemy who shows up. And then there's a third one who shows up. Then, yeah, I can't say anything else without spoiling it. But the bad guys in Ghost Asia, I think, are what definitely made me enjoy it. That, and aesthetically, the suits were pretty cool. I can't not talk about the suits when I'm talking about Tokusatsu. After Ghost Asia, we have a series that definitely is popular. Gokaiger. The 35th anniversary Super Sentai. And, you know, for the 35th anniversary, they decided to go full in on the anniversary. Having a series who, you know, they're pirates. They use pirated copies of all the other Rangers. Oh, a joke I'm glad they actually make in the show itself. Oh, it was very good. Primarily because even for someone like me who hadn't watched all the previous Super Sentai, as they went through and kind of like they had a lot of like legacy guests come in, like actors from the previous shows, as they kind of like episode by episode were trying to unlock and be deemed worthy of possessing the grand power of each of the previous Sentai teams. And it was just great for someone like me who hasn't watched them to kind of get like these little snippets of what the other shows are about. So that and the characters in it are all great. You have Marvelous, Gokai Red, Luca, Gokai Yellow, Joe, Blue. Like, it's one of the ones where you remember the characters. And then, especially, applaud Toei's decision for making the Silver Ranger, the 6th Ranger, just have him, like, canonly be a Sentai fanboy. Always lecturing the others on kind of like, you know, what the different Sentai did. What made them special. Always asking for the autographs, like when they met their senpai. Oh. I'm going through all this and really just want to get back to it. And then there's Go Busters again. Go Busters is... Again, it's one of those ones where I look back and kind of, I see some people not talking quite as favorably about it as I feel it deserves. But, first of all, can I just talk aesthetically? It's the one, and I believe the only series so far that has used leather suits for the Rangers. And I love it. The suits look so cool in Go Busters. But their whole thing was, it's, they call it Neo AD, I believe? Neo AD 2012, I believe it takes place in. And there's this new energy source, but there's interdimensional invaders trying to steal it. And their job is, you know, they're recruited by the energy company to, you know, defend the energy company's interests. Is it a Jungle Fury? I suppose it is a little, it's a kind of similar to Geki Ranger in some ways. No. But it was... Again, it's a series that has absolutely amazing villains. Like, Enter and Escape just stole the show. And then the Extra Rangers as well has some of the best cockpits in Super Sentai, I feel, like the mechs. Because they've been for a while, like, Super Sentai cockpits have kind of been like open platforms where the Rangers stand and kind of do the fight moves and then the mech copies them. Do you want a tier list? I can make a tier list if you want a tier list. Do I have a template for a tier list? Ooh, that would actually be tough. That would actually be tough. That'll have to be a different video. I have to prepare myself mentally for processing. Like, what do I like most? Do I have to actually judge them all? No. Like, the mech cockpits in Go Busters were, you know, actual mech cockpits filled with buttons and levers and switches and so mechanical looking, which I missed. God, that is, you know what? I'm gonna hold up a sec. Whereas I do have a. I'm gonna to take a slight break. I'm going to go into my content planning spreadsheet I have. Right, where is it? Where's my subjects to talk about? And let me just add a... Why isn't typing? Can I type in this box, please? There we go. A Super Sentai tier list. That's on the schedule now. There we go. That's happening. That can be next week. Oh. Yeah. Oh, but no. This is my personal recommendation, though. Like, if anyone's going to get started in watching Super Sentai, Go Busters is definitely one to start on. I was about to say, like, definitely start on Go Busters, but I'm kind of thinking there are another couple of ones that are maybe worth giving your go. Go Busters is a great one for just the feel of it. It is a super fun show to watch. Shinkenger, Power Rangers Samurai's original version, is the best one, I think, to watch for a story-focused Tokusatsu series. But, well, Go Busters was followed up by, to keep on the list going, Kyoryuger, Juden Sentai. It was all dinosaurs. The third Dinosaur Sentai. It was kind of interesting, because it had a sub-motif of music. Even the summer movie for Kyoryuger was somewhat of a musical. It's again one of those ones that like leans very much into the comedy side of things and does it really well, but uses that comedy to punctuate the serious moments in it. Like, it has minor spoilers here, so again, you can mute for a few seconds if you don't want to hear this. But the final battle, they do this awesome thing of kind of having the Rangers kind of push towards the enemy's base, but, you know, they're under attack from all sides, and one by one they leave the other members behind to hold the line. And it's such an epic moment. I think it's the one as well that really sold me on the idea of something that Super Sentai, I feel, need to do more. Is Super Sentai obviously to have the real cool things where they all give out their names, shout the name of the team, and then the, you know, train behind them explodes. But in the final episode, doing that and having them not transform, or having them like have the suits but no helmets on, it just makes it so cool. So cool. And next up is... This is the year I think we upgraded from 720 to 1080 on Japanese television, because I had to resize that. We have Tokusatsu, the trained Sentai, and one that has never been adapted into Power Rangers yet. And quite possibly won't be, given the direction Power Rangers seems to be going in. It's one of, for like on the surface, I didn't expect to like so much. But it's really, again, really fun. Like, it's quite light-hearted, a lot of bits. If you exclude the fact the 6th Ranger is, like, nearly suicidal and actively, constantly searching for his place to die. Like, he only... I can't say too much about it, but the 6th Ranger is... he's an interesting character. Oh... No, I do remember, like, the finale of that gets very emotional. At least it did for me. But, again, I love these shows. I absolutely adore them. No. Tokusatsu was followed up by... here we go. We're getting into... Let's get into the parts of Super Sentai where I'm not quite as positive. Because here we go with Ninja. Another ninja Sentai, because, you know, ninjas and dinosaurs always need more of them. And it was the first Super Sentai that I kind of, like, finished and was... It was okay. It had some redeeming characters. The Red Ranger, who was very prominent in this one, was not one of the redeeming characters. Oh, wait. Which show has the better bass theme song for this versus the PR? Okay, just to, like, are you asking, like, does overall Super Sentai have better theme songs or Power Rangers? Or are you asking, like, is there, for a particular, should I be saying that for each individual series, of which one I think has the better theme song? No. That's in some cases that'd be quite difficult. Because, I mean, Super Sentai doesn't have, overall... Overall, I think I'd have to say Super Sentai, but that's kind of mostly my personal preference, because I like the lyrics in Super Sentai songs, because they tend to be more lyrical. But there are some Power Rangers theme songs that are just... They might only have like 4 different words in the whole song, but they go hard. Oh. Like, I was even think... Like, I was just watching just before this, the Time Force opening again, and... Ooh, that's one situation where Power Rangers Time Force, I would think I'd rank the Time Force opening higher than the Time Ranger opening. The theme songs are... I suppose that's one... Like, I feel sometimes Power Rangers has a more consistent style with their theme songs as well. I think that's also because Power Rangers has... Yeah. Yeah, Go Power Rangers is great. And it gets you hyped. It's memorable. But I like kind of like having the lyrics to listen to. Yeah. Because that's one big difference I'm kind of aware of between Super Sentai and Power Rangers, is Super Sentai series are much more isolated. Yep. Oh, Time Force I think was my first as well. I kind of like caught the tail end of it before starting Wild Force. Oh. Yeah, but need to try and keep my mind on topic. But Power Rangers kind of has like a... The stories are separate, but there's threads interlinking them, like it's all their powers tie back to the morphing grid and such. And to what I know, like there's actually a massive amount of lore behind Power Rangers that I don't know, because I never got into that side of it, because you've got all the comics and the books, and there's so much there. Like and I imagine it's more, because I'm going back in a minute, this is getting completely sidetracked. I'm like really obsessing over Bionicle lore right now, and reading up on kind of like all the story behind these kids' toys they made. And I think Power Rangers has something similar. Like, there's a lot of stuff beyond the shows that tie them all together. But yeah, that's Ninja. That was the first Sentai I was kind of disappointed in a little. Yeah, just don't think too much about Mighty Morphin Alien Rangers. Yeah, I kind of remember that. Not too much. Oh dear. Excuse me for a moment, I do have to grab a drink. I'm talking too much. My body is physically not prepared for me speaking. I'm back. Here we go. Oh. Oh. Oh, dude. I should have done some vocal warm-ups before this. Anyway, next. Duosier. I mean, first of all, I gotta say, I for some reason just cannot get into the suits in this one. I don't know why, but they make me think of pajamas. Duosier was one of those ones people didn't like at the time, I remember, but it's not the best. It's not the worst. And I think people do feel it's better than it is, because it happened to be wedged in between the Ninja and the one we'll get onto next. Yeah, that's, to be fair, I did quite like it, actually. It didn't do anything special, but it was just, you know, a solid series. The Sixth Ranger that got introduced was quite fun as well for a time. I think my main problems with it is just aesthetically. Again, the suits, I don't know why they just didn't quite click with me. But also, all their mechs were... The machines were all cubes. Cubes that unfolded and turned into animals. Which was cool for a bit, but they start... There's a limited number of things you can do with cubes. But... Oh, going through this list of Sentai, I now have to go on to one that... If I make a Sentai... When I make a Sentai tier list, I can guarantee you this will be at the bottom. Q-Ranger. Q-Ranger had so much potential. It was kind of almost going to be like a Power Rangers Star Wars style thing. Like, that's what it was hyped up as. Q-Rangers. The ultimate saviors of the galaxy. And it was, yeah. It happened. It reduced pretty much every character to just kind of like a catchphrase. And particularly it was very, very red-centric. Like the Red Ranger was... Yeah. So it was hard. I kind of went and grabbed all these screen captures myself for it. So... yeah. That's just me not getting the framing quite right, but I think it gets across the aesthetic of the show. I think it just really didn't work. Like they can make a... I think I saw someone like make a drinking game of the first episode for kind of like take a shot every time the Red Ranger says "lucky" in some shape or form. And yeah, I think like there was like something about like if you don't actually do this because you'll likely die from alcohol poisoning by the end of the episode. This show was still to this day the only series of Super Sentai that I actively chose to stop watching 2 episodes before the finale because I was just I realized I had no investment in it. It was I think what makes it worse is it was one that had so much potential. Like it could have been great. Okay, now this is an interesting one, because I might actually need to see if I can get 2 pictures up at the same time here. Oh, there we go, there's Pat Ranger. But this entry is only half about them. So let's fade out. And this is Lupin Ranger versus Pat Ranger. This is Toei, I think, almost making up for like kind of the last 3 years of not being great. They made a series that there were still things they could have done better, but it was so good. Lupin Ranger vs. Pat Ranger was, beyond having a overly long title, because the full title being Kaito Sentai Lupin Ranger versus Keisatsu Sentai Pat Ranger, but it was, you know, cops and robbers. They had a group of phantom thieves and a group of police officers. Plus, you know, the bad guys, who were just, you know, the interdimensional mafia. And it was just fun, having 2 different teams opposed to each other. I don't know how much detail I want to go into it, because I don't quite know how to summarize the series quickly. But I do remember it worked. I feel like I've deliberately put the Lupin Ranger picture above the Pat Ranger picture, because they do kind of overshadow the Pat Rangers a bit, which is, I feel, one of the weaker points of the show. I feel like, which kind of makes, because the whole idea was kind of like, oh, who are you going to support? What team are you siding with? And then having one team kind of get far more attention in the show kind of made it a little bit more difficult. But it was still such a cool idea. And compared to the cool ideas they'd had during the other seasons recently, this one actually worked. Lupin Ranger. Let's bring that up. Lupin Ranger. Yeah, that's actually one. This is my currently the Persona 5 Royal playthrough I'm going with. This is the only reason why my Phantom Thieves team is called Lupin Ranger. Is because I'm a Super Sentai fanboy. That's it. There's no other reason. But after that, we had Kishiryu Sentai Ryu Soldier. Another series that... Okay, this is one, aesthetically, I absolutely adored it. It was cool. It fell a little flat in places, but at the end of the series, I was happy. I enjoyed it. It's about... It's a yet more dinosaurs, but also kind of the motif of them being knights. Which is like Kishiryu means knight dragon, but Ryu can also kind of be used to mean dinosaur. Because I believe, if I remember correctly, Japanese for dinosaur, Kyoryu, is literally just ancient dragon. So, you can kind of translate the name, I suppose, as Dino Knight Sentai, or Dino Knight Task Force. And there's more... Yeah, there's more to backglow for you as well in that picture, I'm realizing. But it was followed up by... What was it followed up by? Oh yeah, the series that I wasn't sure about. And I think I watched this one late. But Kira Major. Now, from this picture, it looks silly. And to be fair, in parts it quite was. But it made the silly work so well. This is one that kind of... It didn't feel like it had the deepest storyline. But it looked cool, the mechs were cool, the fights were cool, and it was just fun. I think that's the best way I can put Kira Major, is it was just plain and simple fun. Oh, and it was all about... I think part of it as well, like, it was about... Like, the motive was like about being special, like having that special something that makes you shine. And how it doesn't necessarily have to be something like... super exceptional, that we all have like the little things. I mean, the main thing I criticize about Kira Major is in one of the like spin-off side project things, the using pineapple apple pen. I'd seen enough PPAP on the internet without having to need it in my Super Sentai as well. Cool. But after Kira Major, we moved on to Zenkaiser, which... Zenkaiser was another one that was just fun. It was another anniversary series, but kind of quite a loose anniversary series. It had a lot of, from what I understand, references to previous series, but it very much did its own thing at the same time. Interesting, this was also kind of like the COVID Sentai, I remember. Which I believe is partly the reason why only the main ranger, Zenkaiser, was an actual face actor. The others all, like, even untransformed, they were kind of like in suits. They were all robots. Because that meant that kind of, you know, there wasn't much face-to-face contact in the, like, recording side of things. I did definitely enjoy it. It's also one I watched a fair bit of without subtitles, so it was one of the first ones I attempted to watch just listening to Japanese. It's a fun one. I don't know if I'd recommend it as kind of a first Sentai to watch, but, you know, if you watch Sentai and you get into it, I think you'd enjoy Zenkaiser. But, time to... Wait a sec, is this the right one? Oh... Hold up a sec. No, wait, do I have a better picture than that? I do. Here we go. Dawn Brothers. What can I say about Dawn Brothers? I was honestly at first like I was unsure about Dawn Brothers purely because the Pink and the Black Ranger are CGI. One because he's stupidly tall, and the other because he's tiny. But actually watching the series, I adore Dawn Brothers. I love it. And the main reason why is, if you take it at face value, the plot is all over the place. It doesn't always make a lot of sense. But the characters in it is such a character-driven show. Like I wasn't too worried about like the overall plot, but the personal rivalry between the Red Ranger, Don Momotaro, and Sonoi, one of the like enemy commanders. Then there's, you know, Haruka, the Yellow Ranger, her career as a mangaka, and how she's been accused of plagiarism, and trying to, you know, deal with that part of her life. Sarahara, I don't remember much about what he does. He writes haikus all the time. No, he's a fun character for all the others to bounce off. And then of course I can't think about Dawn Brothers without the whole love triangle situation between the Pink Ranger, the Black Ranger, and their girlfriend/wife. Because that's a plot line and a half that I am so glad they drag out for more or less the entire duration of the show. Again, it's not one I feel like had a particularly strong plot, but I just absolutely adored the character interactions in it. And it's one that I'd kind of been starting to, with like the recent years of Super Sentai, kind of starting to fall off of it. Because the show had definitely kind of felt like it had been on a decline for a bit, but then Dawn Brothers comes out, and nope, I was hyped again. But I can't say if Dawn Brothers quite stands up to the hype I have been getting for. I'm just going to minimize this because it deserves to have everyone in the picture. That's the wrong one I'm readjusting. Let's go. Osama Sentai King Osier. This show. This is the one currently broadcasting, and it is. I know some people I've seen people say like the plot doesn't, like there's a lot of like kind of things that don't quite make sense. The whole idea is each of the Rangers is like the monarch of a different country, but so that's kind of like the whole idea. It's King Osier, Osama Sentai. They're kings, monarchs. But first things first, the suit design is amazing. Like they finally taking a step away from like the normal like spandex suits. They've kind of done that a little bit in Dawn Brothers, but actually having the suits that are much more armored than we normally get in Super Sentai. And they all have the little shoulder capes, and oh, I just love the suits here. The mech as well is great looking. But this is another one which feels very... Once you accept that, you know, this is a kids show aimed at, like... I think even more, like, it's even more aimed towards preschoolers than even, like, primary school children. Or, elementary school, I suppose, for anyone in America or Japan. But it's got that interesting political layer to it, and the fact that each of them are monarchs of their own country. Like, they all have their own interests. They're not a team. I love that dynamic, because it's similar to Dawn Brothers. Every character is kind of like their own person. They're not... Oh, it's... I think especially because we're getting episode 19 of King Osier this week, which is titled Osama Sentai King Osier. And is looking like it's going to be the episode where they formalize themselves as a team. So we've gotten to spend 18 episodes with an origin story for Super Sentai team, which normally we don't get. Normally it's kind of, oh, they're quickly and suddenly formed in episode 1, and that's them. They're a team now. That's their origin story. This is that. There's been 18 episodes of infighting, like intrigue. Like it's all, again, it's all like kids show level intrigue, but it's Oh, it's been so good. I am absolutely adoring King Osier. Oh. Oh, my throat is killing me right now. I am talking too much. Far too much. Oh. But yeah. That is every Super Sentai series I have watched and or am watching. And oh, that's good. It's quite a lot. I have done a lot of Tokusatsu watching in the last few years. But again, let's get back to where I was in my own story. Because after Super Sentai, I found Kamen Rider. And started getting into Kamen Rider, and that was when... What happened when I watched Kamen Rider? I watched start with Deno, and then I think it was Double, what I moved on to? Because at the time, Wizard was the currently airing one. I think I started watching Wizard while it was airing, but didn't finish it until after it finished airing. And that was... Because I know I was going through quite a backlog. I think I started at Deno and then just watched them through in order from there. So Deno, Kiva, Decade, Double, O's, Forze, Wizard. And then, yeah, then I have the success story of the... Actually, no, something I should talk about now is because I think it was around this time where... Well, it wasn't around this time, but, I went back after watching through some of them. I'd gone back and watched the earlier Heisei Riders, so Kuga through to Kabuto. And after watching Kabuto, I ended up doing a rewatch of Double again. Kamen Rider Double had a certain scene in it that I was kind of... I'm fairly certain I binged the entirety of Double in like a 48-hour period with next to no sleep. Oh, excuse me. And, if I can find it. Yes, indeed. All I need to do is go to here. This is where I can explain this. This is, I don't think this is current. I think this is out of date, this one. But it is my, subscriber count right now on YouTube. And it's wrong. Well, I mean, it's right, but it's, like, not this many people actually care what I do. This is because of when I rewatched Double, I got to a certain scene, you know, being sleep deprived as well, and I'm kind of like, this looks like a reference to Kabuto. It was when, Kabuto had a thing. When he did his finisher, he had like 3 buttons on his belt that kind of counted out like 1, 2, 3, and then he activated his kick. He had a habit of kind of, he'd press 1, throw a punch or 2 in, press 2, throw another kick in or something, press 3. Like, it was kind of, he staggered the activation of it. And then, in Double, they had a similar thing where Double's Fang Joker form has to press the back on the belt 3 times to activate the finisher. I did the same thing, and my brain kind of like, this is similar enough to be a reference, right? So I went on Windows Movie Maker and made a minimal effort, you know, reference. Kind of going, hey, this is a thing, this is a reference. And it got me some subscribers, and I think I can actually show... if I can find it. I do have it saved. I took a picture of it. There it is. So what I need to do is just find... it's at the bottom of the list, isn't it? There it is. This stupid picture. Because if you can see this, this is my view graph for my entire channel. And, yes. My channel has nearly 5 million views. And 81.7 thousand hours of watch time, which equates to about, I think, nearly 10 years? which is absolutely mad. You can also tell exactly on this graph like when I deleted the video. This was my initial foray into making like anything related to Tokusatsu and uploading it to YouTube. And I don't know what much to say about it. I think part of the reason why I've been nervous about getting back into it, because I kind of know that this is what I'm holding myself up to. This is what I used to do. This is what I used to have access to. Well, but I was, I do have some standards in myself. As lazy as I am, I do have some standards, and after a while, I was kind of like, I am not happy with the quality of this content, and I am most definitely not happy with the amount of attention this is getting. When things I was doing that I was actually putting effort into were not getting any attention whatsoever. So I did take it down. I was not happy with it. Not happy enough with it. I am still suffering. It's completely skewed my channel analytics for the whole time since. Because now whenever I look at my subscriber count, I don't quite know how many people are actually subscribed to me. Because I always have to subtract like approximately 3.3 thousand. But yeah, that's a little story about, how I got started in Tokusatsu content and why I've been a little unsure about getting back into it. But, I have stuff to vent about. Yeah. Speaking of double, that's something else to introduce me to, and something about Tokusatsu that I adore. I adore a lot of things about Tokusatsu. I'm using the word a lot, I think, at the moment. But I was watching, I believe, episode was like 17 or 18. It was the story arc that maybe 16 or 15. The story arc that Kamen Rider Axel debuts in. And for the first time of watching like Tokusatsu, I noticed during Double's fight scene against the Ice Age Dopant that there was a song playing in the background. Like a cool rock song, and I was like, oh, that sounds cool. Can I find the name of that? And this was my first foray into the world of insert songs, and something that has since become quite possibly my favorite part. But saying my favorite part is a little bit of hyperbole, but definitely, like, I don't know if I'd be into Tokusatsu near as much as I am if I didn't have the music to listen to outside. Like, there's something about music, and like not just like normal soundtracks, but having vocal tracks and original songs during fight scenes, and during in some of them during emotional scenes as well. That it makes them hit hard. And like they're as well, like they're not in Tokusatsu, particularly Kamen Rider. I find like they're not always. Like, you don't listen to them and think, oh, like, this is a Kamen Rider song. They have such a variety of, like, different genres and different tones, and... Like, I've been listening to Non-Stop recently. I did... Kamen Rider Tycoon's... the theme song for his new form, which, I was not expecting a song just titled Chair to hit so hard. It just goes. And it is... Oh... I spent most of a lot of the music I listen to is just Tokusatsu music. I just go onto Spotify and look up Kamen Rider, sort by playlist, find the one with the most songs I can, hit shuffle. Because yeah, that's another thing, and how like Tokusatsu's I believe like changed my like taste in music. Oh, I can't think quite how, but like definitely, even the songs I listen to that aren't Tokusatsu songs are kind of like I prefer things that are similar, like give me similar feel. Something I can kind of like imagine action scenes to in my head. Yeah, but from Kamen Rider, that led me on to discovering the rest of the Tokusatsu world. And the rest of Tokusatsu world being well, it's quite an expansive list. Going on, we have Ultraman is the next big one I suppose to talk about, because it's one of the big three, the recurring series that's still going on. Ultraman's admittedly one I don't have too much experience with. I've watched through Ginga S. I started watching X. I want to get back to watching Ultraman X again. Orb and Jeed. Jeed is great. It's why I think it's why Jeed is the one I put in my thumbnail for this video. But Ultraman as well. Ultraman, I'm not as much a fan on like the stories in Ultraman, though they are pretty cool. But something Ultraman does well, and I think it's possibly by virtue of being the Tokusatsu still made by Superior Productions. It does Tokusatsu well. Like the practical special effects and such in Ultraman are, you almost sometimes can't compare them to Super Sentai and Kamen Rider. But I guess that's what happens when the founder of your company, you know, invented the genre. And then going a little more outside. Well, speaking of other Tokusatsu, let's go back to early childhood and just you know, just give a quick shout out to the Mystic Knights of Turnanog. If no one else remembers like Irish Power Rangers, I do. That's all I can remember it being. I don't remember anything about the story or what the show is. But, you know, Mystic Knights of Turnanog. Saban made a Tokusatsu series based on, I believe, like loosely based on Irish mythology. Which, one day maybe, I'll go back and rewatch. And maybe I'll even review it. On the other spectrum of things, we have another Tokusatsu show I do very much like called Garo. Garo was introduced to, and it was interesting because it showed me like what the genre can be like with a more adult target audience. Garo was more like kind of had that kind of horror atmosphere. Like the monsters were a little more monstrous, creepy, and then the armor in Garo is so cool. It's a bit of a shame. The story in Garo, great as well. They've sometimes like kind of strayed away from the Tokusatsu side of things. I feel like particularly in the Yamio Terasamonu series, and what was the other one? Versus Road. Versus Road was a little, I wasn't too fussed on that. It kind of strayed away from the hero aspect, because even being a more mature show, Garo was still very much a hero show. Garo is still kind of, you know, the brave knight, like putting his life on the line to protect others from in the shadows, and but what am I saying? I suppose now is a good a time as any to kind of bring up a little bit, I suppose, of what I mean when I say like Tokusatsu, like particularly like when I found Super Sentai and Kamen Rider, how it very much like changed the course of my life. And the answer to that is, well, before like going into school, I was kind of like game design was what was on my mind. Like I wanted to make games. To be fair, like entertainment, I think in general has always kind of been on my mind. Like as a kid, there was even a one time I heard a song about a psychic cat, and I made a little dance routine for it and gathered family around to watch. I'm still glad that no one has that on video. I hope. Please, no one have that on video. And yeah, so yeah, then it was like, you know, it was just doing like little things for entertaining. Like when it was about being like, I wanted to be a Power Ranger. I wanted to make games, but it was finding Tokusatsu that kind of, first of all, like definitely like got me genuinely interested in looking into TV and film production and acting. My looking into acting didn't go anywhere because, surprise, surprise, I can't act. And But one other thing it did was I knew about Japan before, obviously, and like I was watching anime, but I'd never really. Anime was kind of its own thing. Like it was a cartoon. Like cartoons aren't reflective of real life. I know TV in general isn't reflective of real life a lot of the time. But starting to watch Japanese television, listen to the language, it started like making me ask questions, like get interested in Japan itself. And anyone who knows me in real life knows I have just a slightest little bit of interest in Japan. By which I mean I am completely obsessed with the country. And I generally leaving school, I went over to attend a summer school over there in Tokyo, and I don't know, just ever since, like I've been back once since for a month. That was just in the fall before COVID. Yeah, that was like October 2019. I think I was last in Japan. I just spent every day wanting to go back, and like I am convinced myself, like kind of like that's my life's like long-term goal, is to get back out there, possibly permanently, if that is ever an option for me. And a lot of what I've done has kind of been to like kind of work a little bit towards that. Particularly like I kind of do a little bit of teaching myself Japanese, because there's not many places in Northern Ireland I can learn. We don't have any schools or courses really to teach Japanese in the country here, and private lessons are a little bit pricey. But like, and having that as my life goal and working towards that, it's something I wouldn't have if it wasn't for Tokusatsu. And it's such a, I feel at this stage like it's such a big part of me, like my desire to get out to Japan, and I don't know quite how to put it into words. My brain is starting to die. I've been talking for too long. Sorry, I've messed up my screen. There we go, all fixed. But it's genuinely like it gave me a goal when I was, particularly because I was this is maybe taking the stream in a weird direction, but I struggled quite a bit with depression in high school. Well, not, and a little bit after high school. That's not what I'm here to talk about today, but you know, while I had all that, like Tokusatsu, so like that interest in Japan, and not even necessarily just the interest in Japan, but the desire to like be involved in Tokusatsu, I looked at it and kind of like, this is something that's so cool, it's something I want to be a part of. It was one of those little things that helped keep me going. Like, it gave me that goal to work towards too. I wouldn't go as far as to say like Tokusatsu like saved me from my depression or anything, but it's definitely one of those things that I don't quite know where I'd be in life without it. I guess it's maybe maybe that's one reason why I can't let go of it, but in the end, it's fun. I don't think there's any other word for it other than, you know, it's a TV show. I like it. It's fun. There's not much else I think I can say too much about it. Well, about the difference it's made, because again, there's I don't feel this is quite the place to be talking about too much in my life. But it's, I wish I was better at talk. I wish I was better at talking. I wish I had the words to better kind of get across how much I love these shows. But I guess one thing I can do is, we gave Super Sentai airtime. I think it's only fair enough that we give Kamen Rider a little bit of time to go over some seasons. So let's go to, this is a bad picture because it's an older show and I think it hasn't been de-interlaced. Kamen Rider Kuga. The first Heisei Rider. This is a series I've watched. It's cool. I'm trying to remember about it now because it's been one of the ones that's been longest since I've watched it. But it was kind of, Kamen Rider had taken a hiatus in the 90s, really. I think it actually started in the 80s. So it had been a while since Kamen Rider had like a standard, like a weekly show. And Kuga was the attempt back into it, and I mean, I wasn't there for the hiatus, obviously. But Kuga feels like that's like how you reboot a series. Well, it was definitely like in design and I think more simpler than later series. Keeping the, but it was good. I need to rewatch it now. I can't say much about it, not because it's not good, but simply because it's been that long that I can't quite remember enough about it to talk about it in detail. Maybe I should focus on, rather than trying to talk about every show in the list of Tokusatsu, maybe just focus on the ones I remember enough. I remember enough to talk about. So with that, we'll skip Agito because I need Agito's another one I need to rewatch. And Ryuki. Ryuki is one actually kind of worth mentioning because it is the only Heisei Kamen Rider, to the best of my knowledge, that has any official English adaptation in the form of Kamen Rider Dragon Knight. Ryuki was, I also, if I'm understanding correctly, Ryuki is an interesting Kamen Rider because it served as an inspiration for the Fate series and Madoka Magica, which are two shows I wouldn't have expected to have, influence from, a children's superhero show. No, Ryuki takes the children's superhero show in a bit of a weird direction and has it be, a battle royale death game between 13 riders. Including, you have one rider who's just straight up a murderer. I'm fairly certain he's a serial killer. Oh, and you have is Katauka corrupt, or is he just? I can't remember. Oh. But I think Ryuki might have been responsible for kind of the variety in Kamen Rider, because it was such a departure, I feel, from what Kamen Rider had been. And it set a precedent for kind of, Kamen Rider can be different. But if we're going to Kamen Rider, I have to obviously talk about Den-O, my first introduction to the series. And time travel. Time travel normally, can be iffy. It doesn't always work. Den-O had an interesting way, one of both, explaining away their paradoxes and such, in terms of, by making time based on, by having the present be a set moment. From what I understand Den-O, the idea is that the present is, there's a point that is always the present, and the present is always moving. So if you travel into the past, you are in the past, you are not, the past isn't then your present, it is always the past. And what exists in the past is dependent on what people in the present remember. So in order to actually change the past, you have to adjust memories and such, which is... maybe this isn't the place to kind of go into the lore about it, but suffice to say, it has an interesting take on how time travel can work. And it just, again, it has the balance between comedy and emotional moments done it's got it down so well, I feel. The suit design as well is just iconic. Den-O is by far to me one of the most recognizable riders. The action was fun, especially I have to give plenty of respect to Kaiwa Seiji, the suit actor for Den-O, in this, for having to play 4, 5, 6, even different personalities. Sometimes 4 of them at the same time. Oh. And it's just, if anyone wants to get into Kamen Rider, like, let me know. I will watch this with you. Because you know, if you want my recommendation on where to start Kamen Rider, Den-O is it. Den-O will show you how serious Kamen Rider can be. It will show you how comedic it will be. It is a great show of just how fun Kamen Rider can be. From Den-O, where will we go? How about we go to... I'm gonna need to downsize that. I wish I'd scaled all these pictures correctly beforehand. Actually, unhiding the picture would be good. There we go. Kamen Rider Double. This is a great series. And it is actually the first series that got a... recently in... How recently, I can't remember how recently, but I think it was definitely relatively recently compared to how old the series itself is. A anime sequel. The first Kamen Rider to properly, like, to get a... I don't want to say true anime, and kind of like the Kamen Rider SD series, but Futo PI is... It was great getting to finally see Kamen Rider, like, in an anime format. I still have a preference for the Tokusatsu, because I'm still... As cool as anime is, it doesn't have that realness factor. I love the physical suit. Double is about a pair of detectives who, transform together into one Kamen Rider, and it's great. It's a kids show definitely still, but it's definitely a detective show as well. You have them like solving cases for their clients, and like they're not like police detectives. They're not like the big high up ones or Sherlock Holmes. They're getting the sorry, I've lost my cat, and then just things escalate. People go to them with odd requests that the police would kind of, no, we don't think that's a real case there. And it's this is another one I'd recommend. Kind of Den-O is still my first recommendation, but Double is definitely kind of a, if you want to watch Kamen Rider, you can't go wrong with starting with Double. From Double, okay. Here's a series I have to mention for a different reason. Because, as much as I like Tokusatsu, I have consistently failed to ever get anyone I know invested or interested in watching it with me. With the exception of Kamen Rider Gaim. Once, I managed to convince my flatmate to watch Gaim, and he watched the series. Gaim is one that is really cool, because I didn't expect to be too fussed on it. Because the first time I watched Wizard through, and was hearing Gaim was announced, I wasn't fussed on Wizard the first time. I watched it for a second time, I love it now. But the first time I kind of felt, and then I heard the next rider was kind of, the motive is fruits. His base form is orange form. And I was kind of like, oh, this is where Kamen Rider's going. Well, I guess I might be done with it if it's going to get this silly. And then I watched Gaim, and Gaim happens. If you are familiar with the name Gentaro Urabochi, colloquially known sometimes as the Ura Butcher, because he has a tendency of killing off a lot of the characters in the manga and anime he writes for. He was the lead writer on Gaim, and Gaim made the silly fruit motif, took it and made it work so well. There's quite a few twists in it, so I don't know how much I can talk about the plot. But again, it's, there's kids, they have these toys that let them summon monsters to fight each other. And eventually one of them gets hold of a belt that lets, him transform to fight the monsters himself. And, then problems happen. Lots of problems. And, I'm talking about problems where, you know, nuclear weapons start being deployed against Japan, kind of bad. But Gaim is another definite recommendation. Where else can I talk about? Oh, no. Here's one I have to talk about. My sister would not be impressed with me if I didn't mention this series. Drive. Another detective, but this time, this one actually is a police detective. He's also the Kamen Rider who's doesn't ride a bike, he drives a car. Which is it's kind of just a fun name thing, Kamen Rider Drive. It's another one that has such good characters, particularly the villains. It's actually something I feel like Kamen Rider does a lot of really well, is having great villains. Like villains who you love to hate and villains who you love to love, because you know, they're not always bad people. They just, you know, just how do I say it? Plus, the series has chase. That's all you need to know. Like, what words do I use to describe chase? But that's it. To be fair, as much as I like chase, I don't quite have the same enthusiasm as some of the fanbase do. Art, on the other hand. Art's where it's at. Best character. Ooh. What other riders do we have to talk about? What do we get? How about we leave the Heisei era and into Reiwa with Kamen Rider 01. This is, if you don't know, when the Japanese emperor abdicated a couple of years back, the Japanese calendar changes era, so it went from being Heisei to Reiwa. And Kamen Rider 01 is the first Kamen Rider that started airing in the Reiwa era. So, and given it came like immediately after the 20th Heisei Rider, it was kind of like a reboot's too strong a word, but kind of like a. They clearly kind of want to be like, almost like give it a feeling like of a fresh start. And 01 is a brilliant series, I feel. All the characters in it are great. Again, particularly the villains. The team of Metsubo Jinrai are... Love the show. It's also... It's got the... It's the interesting one to talk about... because this is the one dealing with AI. Which is always an interesting one to talk about. And again, suit design in this one is absolutely on point. One thing I do have to say though, and because it's one like very minor thing that bugs me about people when people talk about Kamen Rider 01, and I, you know, if I'm talking about 01 at all, I want to make this clear, my opinion on this. Kamen Rider 01's final form is Metal Cluster. That's it. That is his final form. Kamen Rider 02 is a different rider. It is not 01's final form, it is 02, different rider. Same person, different system. And, you know, to rant on about one more. I mentioned King Oger, this year's Super Sentai. Let's mention Kamen Rider Geats, this year's Kamen Rider. Which is quite possibly a contender for one of my favorite seasons. It's another one where we have a death game going on, except it's not too much of a death game. Mostly people just kind of have their memories wiped and are sent back to their normal lives when they lose. Unless they're killed, in which case, yeah, you know, being killed kills you. But it's interesting. It has interesting characters, particularly the protagonist for a while was kind of... I'm still not entirely sure he won't become an antagonist, so I'm mostly convinced at this stage, I think. But it's the action specifically, I think, in Geats, and the suit design is... Geats' final form, Geats 9, is one of the, if not, I think I'm confident enough in my opinion to just call like Geats 9 like the best looking final form Kamen Rider's had. Geats 9 is epic. And again, the music. Again, we have Kamen Rider Geats has given us Trust Lost as the theme song. It's given us Negai. Negai as Geats 9's theme song. And it's given us Chair from Backon for Tycoon Shogun. Well, it's not Tycoon Shogun, it's Bujin Sword, isn't it? Oh. It's all good. I love Kamen Rider. I wish I had better. I wish I could do to speak better to talk more about these shows. Oh. But, I've ranted for a while. I think that's quite possibly all I have to say about all that. It's... Oh. Yeah. I'm trying to kind of go over in my mind if there's anything else I have. Yeah. Oh, I was about to say that maybe there's like a place for talking about like Tokusatsu anime, by which I mean kind of anime that kind of give me that same vibe, but or like have Tokusatsu like very strong Tokusatsu inspiration or references. But that's maybe for another time because I'm planning on doing these style things more. Partly because it's fun. I like ranting about the things I like, but also partly because, well, it's part of the reason I started this channel is to kind of like help myself learn to speak good, and I think part of learning to speak good is learning to speak, to actually say things rather than kind of just. I have a tendency to think things in my head and not actually make them leave my mouth. So I will probably be back next Thursday. That is my plan. And, given Jacob T. Murphy's suggestion, I will be going ahead and, I think, putting a bit more thought into a Super Sentai tier list. I would go and include Power Rangers as well, but unfortunately I have... Oh. Yeah, that is one thing I do have to admit is, since finding a Super